Sort of operating in both shifts. We have almost got the scanning figured out, but not for the scanners.
I can move it up after you cover your.
Well, do you have to go on with the scan?
We were trying to use advertising for, even like,
Unless you get
get
called out.
some desktop. So we're back to the copier option. Well, we're trying. We finally got the test to scan, so as soon as we do the next one, we're gonna try to run it, but we can get it to work without it to work. But just so.
With the 20 drive,
Yeah, just,
and you make sure your 20 drivers are updated on the copy.
yeah, that department was doing all that. Well, we didn't do the copier until the other day.
A little bit.
We did get it to recognize. We have those Toshiba eStudio copiers everywhere. The copiers, yeah, we have them. See, we've been doing everything online except for the ones. I have to do all this, so their data is up there.
I'm sure that'll be.
Andrew did a good job there. He got everything to work in our district tech office. He was going to go over to the school and I'm sure it was there, which I'm sure it was. But we haven't been doing any scanning, but the data for that school will be included, you know. Because when they do that, that's two different patients, so they don't get the same, you know. So anyway, it'll be okay.
Can't wait to.
And appreciate the help.
Okay.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm still gonna
On
keep
several
it.
things.
Still happy to help.
And I just.
I shared with.
I like your little camera clip on.
That is innovation.
That is innovation.
And that way too, you know, it kind of gets a wide angle of the room, so that way it's not so focused on one person. So, let's do a quick sound check because we do have people joining us online today. So my folks online, if you could raise your hand in the attendee panel, can you hear us? All right. I see hands going up slowly. Yay. All right. Thank you. And then I'm going to lower all the hands. And if you can raise your hand again, if you see the screen. So you should be able to see the Schoolnet slide deck. So we're waiting to see. Okay. Yay. All right. If at any point in time, for those folks online, if you have a question, please use the question icon there to ask your questions, and we will stop and pause and answer them out in whole group. And then also, we do have a link to the presentation that I put in the chat, as well as you guys can check it in, joining us here in person. And if at any point in time, the people that are virtual, you guys are on mute because we know how multitasking is, and thank you for joining us, but we know how this is kind of a long session, so we understand if you need to multitask. If you want to be unmuted, you can raise your hand in the attendee panel and I'll unmute you. So if you're in a space where you can participate and join us, feel free to raise your hand and I will unmute you. All right, so we want to get started with just a quick introduction, going around the room. Melissa, you want to start?
I'm Melissa Boyce. I'm here in Alamance, Burlington, in the accountability department.
I'm Ramona Burke-Clark, and I'm with Wilkes County Schools, and we work on Schoolnet. Julie Hinton, Wilkes County Schools.
I'm Scarlett Ullman, Randolph County Media and Technology.
Sherry Hellman, Chatham County Middle School IPF with Schoolnet Guru.
Drew Mayers, Asheboro City Schools, This is the hat I'm wearing today.
Go ahead, James.
James Doherty from Davidson County Schools. I'm the arts ed and distance learning specialist, and whatever promotion of the day gets turned up by the district office. I'm kind of working with Canvas some as well, so lots of hats.
Good morning, I'm Jen Cooney, I'm the program manager for Schoolnet from Pearson.
Catherine Fulham, from Pearson.
All right, and I'm Pam Batchelor. If you haven't heard me, met me yet, hello. I'm the product manager for Schoolnet, Canvas, Go Open and See, Imagine Math, and anything else, any other hats that need to be picked up. So excited to meet y'all. If anybody online wants to be unmuted to introduce yourselves, if you want to raise your hand, if you're in a safe space to do that, we'd love to have you introduce yourself. Or you can type something in the questions and I'll read it out. I'll give everyone a second. Wait. All right, looks like we're good. Okay. So just to recap, these are our home-based meetup locations. Haven't changed. Yep. So today we're going to do a little bit of hot topics and some contact updates. And then, of course, Joan and Catherine have product updates and talking about what's new in 21.1, which we'll be going to in January. So we do have a hot topics document. If you would take a second and make sure that you add your hot topics, we'll come back to those after lunch. So also the Schoolnet leads, we know that you might have some transitions middle of the year. If you'll take a second to make sure that spreadsheet's updated, what I do is I make sure after every home-based meetup, that spreadsheet, I make sure to copy it over to our email list, so that way those folks get added to our Schoolnet email list for when announcements and things go out. I also have linked here, and I updated the link with our new website, the home-based maintenance weekends for the rest of the year, so you can see that. I will point out that the upgrade to 21.1, we are targeting the weekend before our maintenance weekend for January, because our maintenance weekend for January is the holiday weekend, and that is not an option for Schoolnet for us to upgrade during the holiday weekend because of the staff that needs to be available for them for the upgrade. We also have our monthly webinars. Woo woo, if you've been in some of the webinars, I know I've seen all of you in at least one of them. We have monthly webinars. I have them at 10 a.m., 4 p.m., and 7 p.m. So there's an option, hopefully, that works with your calendar. I will go ahead and say we will probably not be doing 4 o'clock next year. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to send a survey out about that, just because that was a request for this year that we try 4 o'clock, because people said 3 o'clock was too early. But 4 o'clock seems even worse. Like I think every busy thing that could happen happens at 4 o'clock. So while we've had a lot of registrations for the 4 o'clock webinars, we do not have very many participants. So I feel like at 3 o'clock we had a more accurate count of people who registered and people who actually came, versus 4 o'clock I might have 100 people register for it, but then only 15 show up. So. And we'll send out a survey to get your feedback about that. I'm also trying something new. You might have heard about it for December, because I was actually supposed to have webinars tomorrow at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. And obviously I'm a little bit busy this week at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. So what I've done is go to webinar. We have a new feature where you can actually pre-record a webinar and then make it available on demand. So I've tried that option for December. So there's an actual on-demand webinar right now for December, and then we'll have our live version next week at 7. So I'm going to ask for feedback on that as well. I was just wondering if maybe that would be a more popular solution, because on demand, you click on it and it starts playing. So maybe, that would meet your schedule, based on, whenever a teacher has planning, because I remember when I had planning, it was never like, you have planning from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., you have planning from 10:07 to, 11:09 or something like that. So, the on-demand might be a way for teachers to be able to have more access to the webinars at times convenient for them.
Would there still be an option for them to have to receive DLC credits?
Yes, so that's the nice thing. The GoToWebinar keeps track for me of who attends them. And so what I'll do is I'll just set a certain period in the month where I'll say, okay, everyone who attended a webinar in the last month will get their credit certificate for that month. So we're trying that out. So I was excited about that as well, because that also happens a lot. People will register for a webinar and they'll be like, oh, something came up, a child got sick, and they want to be able to make up that webinar for credit. And unfortunately, we couldn't do that before, because I can't tell you who watches a YouTube recording. But GoToWebinar with that on-demand keeps track of who attends the webinar. So, and if you guys online have any feedback about webinars, feel free to use the questions feature to let us know. So yay, we have more data. Go for it. I was just being yay.
Yeah, we're gonna kind of go over a little bit of the content, what I call content updates. That can be anything from any imported data that we brought in, test item updates, things of that nature. So the first thing, just to summarize, that we've been doing over the last few months, and Catherine kind of led this effort, or did lead this effort. All your EOG and EOC data is in Schoolnet from the last school year, as well as ACT, DIBELS, TRC, and IDEL. This is new. This is new to Schoolnet. First time we've ever done it. And what is it again?
It's the Spanish version of
DIBELS. So, and the other thing to note too, when you see it in the student profile, it has the different type of score indicators in Spanish, but it's the exact same thing as the DIBELS English.
There's also, I forgot to mention yesterday, there's a notation in the version. So when you look at the student profile, you pull up DIBELS or TRC, and on the top right, it says version. We saw that several districts or schools, some gave online, some gave, we'll call it a retake or a paper version. So where there was a double score, it's noted, but it's noted as a different version. So you'll see that in there. Go with that?
And yeah, so again, this info is available through the student profile, or if you want to do analysis spreadsheets on standardized testing, that's the other place where you can view this data. Okay. We also heard loud and clear about, the Certica item bank with the Spanish items causing some problems. We did add a filter on the main screen for question language, but I think this is a better solution. We have added a Certica bank with Spanish items. So if you don't want Spanish items, just uncheck that box so that you're not in the default search. So let your users know about that. I think we'll eliminate the complaints about the commingling of Spanish items as a result of that. So every Spanish item is in that one? It is. It started with Spanish. You'll see the Spanish in parentheses. So if you do not want to search on those,
Zoom in on it.
Yes.
just uncheck the checkbox here. And if you do want to, you can also click on the items if you do want to search the Spanish, obviously.
So hopefully that'll make it more easier for, it could be either you're looking for Spanish items or you don't want Spanish items. So hopefully having them all in one place will make them a lot easier.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Pam and Joan, the only Spanish items we have here in North Carolina are from the Certica Bank. So none of the other banks.
Unless someone has created any local Spanish items, which they would just see themselves.
But the DPI banks.
The DPI,
this is the only Spanish bank.
Okay, so we had some released items that had previously were located in the North Carolina DPI classroom bank. They have been moved to the release bank. So you'll see that the numbers for the North Carolina DPI release bank have gone up considerably as a result of that. And recall, the released items are previous year EOC, EOG items. Does it specify from 2018 to the current year? So these are going to be definitely from the EOC, EOG.
And that item count has more than doubled. It was only at 526 for our previously released, so when we pulled the rest out of the classroom, we're at 1320.
Also, we've had increases or additions to the classroom items. Again, classroom items are available to everyone. And this is the breakdown of those items. You can also find the latest additions by searching on, if you could go to the next screen. If you go to the all filter screen and just want to look at the most currently added, you go under item properties and insert the dates of 11/8 to 11/15. Then that will populate the most current classroom items that were just added.
If you don't specify a bank, can you search anywhere for the newest items in, like, how about the benchmark bank? Can you search for, and there may not be any most recently
These are
added.
the new benchmarks.
These are the new benchmarks, and you'll do the same thing.
Sorry.
You're ahead of us.
Yeah.
That's
So there was updates to the benchmark. Again, benchmark items are just available to your district admins for task creation, not to teachers. And this is the updated counts.
And just to let you know where some of them came from, I think on the previous that class when we were talking about classroom, we saw social studies. That came from the, since the NCFEs kind of got, no longer have those for some of these courses, they took all those items and put them in as classroom items. So there's some of the very, that's where some of the social studies items came from in particular. So that's a really good selling point because I always hear from our social studies friends that there's not enough items. So make sure you point out to them that they now have additional classroom items available to them.
So from the leadership role, if you don't specify the bank, you're going to get
A mix.
You're going to get both.
Mhm.
correct.
All right. Matt, sorry, may I jump in and ask another question? In our district, we had several leadership people that have switched from being an instructional coach district-wide. They still have leadership role, but they're only at 1 or 2 schools. If they use a test they created last year when they had district rights and they want to use that at a school, that's going to be assigned as a shared assessment, probably. If it was created as a district benchmark, but they want to use it again only at a school, because they can't share that with teachers.
I don't know that they're going to be able to access it if their default institution is going to go to a school level.
Right.
So you
They
can,
can,
they are able to,
Yeah.
they are able to access it because they're still
So when
leadership.
they make a copy
Mhm.
of the assessment, they should be able to select what,
Whether it's a
what
school
test category.
shared, school
they
shared
want.
classroom.
Yeah.
But it will default now to shared classroom assessment unless they want to make it, unless they want to schedule it at the school level.
Yeah, I just ran into some interesting things this year where some of them wanted to help some PLC groups and they made a test when they were in the leadership role and they tried to co-author it. And well, teachers can't see it, it's just because they don't have leadership rights to see the benchmark items.
Right.
They're like, oh, I mean, it was just one of those.
Oh, okay, gotcha
Yeah.
now, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
That was kind of what led me to that question, but I figured that out, so.
okay. And I'll let Catherine review with you some of the updates, or all of the updates that we have for the winter release. And again, it's being targeted for release in North Carolina on January 10th. I'm just gonna footnote too, a lot of times when we have upgrades, it's real quick. You'll be able to get back in on Friday night. That's not gonna be the case with this update because we're also doing some storage upgrades as well. So it's gonna take the whole weekend for us, so. I'll just go ahead and review this. We do have 2 Pearson webinars. Pam, I don't know if you've got plans for your own on this, but these will be recorded. You can go look at them, but the live times will be January 7th and January 16th. This is the information. This is all linked. You can access it through the slide deck. Again, they'll be recorded and we'll send out the links to the recordings afterwards too. So understand too, this is going to be a Pearson-led. It's not going to be North Carolina specific as far as seeing our item banks. There's probably going to be some things that are going to address system operator roles, which we don't have in the districts. So if you have any of your participants in your districts going to attend, you may just want to let them know that, you know, there might be some things that don't pertain to North Carolina. One other update. So for your scanning districts, we are going to update 12.1 in the updated version. I encourage you to download this. It's got a lot of performance optimizations. We've had some refinements on QRC code scanning so that it will perform better as well. Printing improvements as well as the scanning improvements. Any questions on that? And that will occur as far as being downloadable when we do the update. We will, that weekend, we will load the 12.1 for download. And I forgot to mention another thing too. We have already upgraded training. So if you want to go in and look in the training environment to these updates in 21.1, they are accessible to you so that you can look at them live. And did I have anything else? No, it's you.
Okay, so as you know, when we had 21.0, we had this big change with the item bank creation. And there were a few things that that are going to change over with 21.0. But just to review this, you can create a bank, you can share it with other people. There's 3 roles. You can give them a manager role, which means that they can move items in and out of the bank. They can edit items within your bank. And they can add other people to the bank. If they have view and edit, they can view them, they can edit the items, but they can't change the bank in any way, shape, or form, okay? View means they can only take the items and put them on a test. So all 3 roles, you can use them in a test, you just don't have the ability to change anything about the items until it moves to the test.
Can they still copy the item and then edit it?
Once they get in my test.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Just making sure of that.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that hasn't changed.
This is all the review of 21 now, okay? And if you are a person that is the manager, you'll see in the box here at the bottom that you can add, those of you in the leadership, you can add the whole school to the bank. Some of you may have school banks or district banks. Changes are, this change came about, this is if you are a manager, you have a little bit of extra you're going to have with 21.0. So we heard a lot of scenarios with a teacher leaving the district. I know this does not, I just want to emphasize, it still does not apply to those co-authored tests. Okay, this is strictly for the item banks. But if I'm a teacher and I created a bank for 3rd grade math and I put all the other 3rd grade math teachers on it, and then I get moved to another district, what happens? No one has management rights anymore on that bank. It's just whatever permissions I gave all of you. So in there lies a problem. With 21.1, if you, well, 2 scenarios, I'll give the first one. If I make you a manager with me on my bank and I leave, you can now change and become the bank owner. I start at the bank, I'm the bank owner, but I leave, no one's there to control the bank. But if I give you manager rights, you then also can change the ownership of it, okay? That's scenario 1. Scenario 2 is that I didn't make you a manager. I leave, there's no more manager or owner on the bank. No one can change anything about it. However, Pam or Lisa at Remedy, Joan or myself are sysops in the system. We can now facilitate that move of the bank and make someone else a bank owner or a bank manager. So you're not left in isolation with a bunch of items sitting there that no one can control.
Why doesn't the district lead have that right? Why don't we have the right to do that within any of the banks within our district?
Based on the architecture in North Carolina, and that we only have system operators at a state level.
So normally other states would allow that.
No,
No.
no, it's
I
the
can
same in other
vouch for that.
states. It's in other states as well. But the moral of the story is you want more than one manager on an item bank.
Mhm.
You want an owner, a manager, or two on your item banks, right? We're just letting you know that if you get stuck and lose management on an item
We
bank,
can help you out.
you place a case in and we will get that straightened out for you at the state level.
So the example that I gave yesterday is the slide that you saw a little bit back that had all the DPI item banks. Either Joan or I set them up, but when we set them up, we made each other a manager, we made Pam a manager, we made Lisa a manager. So there are 4 managers on every DPI bank, so that one of us can jump in and facilitate anything that needs to occur with those banks.
So if we were to see an error on an item, we would just contact one of you.
If it's one that
Within
you
those
are
banks.
creating, yes.
And understand, there's no distinction between an owner and a manager. They've got the same rights. It's just the person who started it gets assigned that owner.
Mhm.
But if you've already got a manager on there, they can make someone an owner if there's not an owner already there.
Okay.
Okay, so.
This is just kind of an ease of use feature with this next upgrade, so, in case of
You're
scenarios.
not stuck.
You're not
Yeah, I like
stuck.
that.
I got stuck on a different
We
state
got
where I
stuck.
didn't have another manager, and I was like, ooh, I lost that bank, what do I do now, So, I think this is a good feature in the end. Any other questions about that? Okay, so this, I think, is going to help out a lot. We have new search features on the bank. And you, like Joan said, you can already see these in training. So the first of which is that if you have a test that you're working in and you decide one of the items doesn't work for everyone, you hit replace. Previously, it wasn't retaining all your filters, so you see there in the red box, we have your subject, your grade, your
Yep.
standards. Okay, so I don't have to explain what was happening. As we
Yes.
go on to what will happen, it will now retain all your filters. Okay,
That was an easy one.
that was an easy one, you guys are great.
We talked about that.
Yeah, we did.
So now you have this. Any questions about that? Yes, not?
Thank you.
Yes, Steve.
I emailed Joan about something and put it on the hot topics list, but I think this will be fixed.
Yeah.
Our elementary teachers particularly are going nuts with this because it defaults to every grade level. And if they're a third grade ELA teacher, they just want to search. They don't want to have to unclick all those different grades. But I emailed Joan and she told me that was going to default to be cleared, I think.
We haven't gotten that implemented, but you will have a clear filters button, which she's getting ready to
Oh,
cover
that's the top.
at the top where you can clear all filters. So this is, again, an architectural translation that is making teachers that appear like they have subjects that they don't teach. And it's a translation of the North Carolina, the NCES subjects that are defined in Schoolnet versus how they're defined in PowerSchool. So if we don't have a direct bucket, sometimes they get misaligned. One way to fix that is to ask PowerSchool. That's not going to happen. We're not in a position to update those NCES subjects in Schoolnet from an architectural reason right now. So the best thing we've got to offer is this clear all filters and let them pick those. And remember, they're going to be retained now.
Right.
So they don't have to redo that as they're going through their activity.
So that retaining will carry through a whole test creation sequence?
Yes.
So it wouldn't matter what
But
path
when
they
they
take?
first, yeah, but when they first go in there, they're probably gonna have to clear filters to get rid of that elected activities subject and all that mess that they're getting, so.
That's good to
And
know.
to that point, I know everyone has their own preference of how, and we talked about this yesterday. If you start from the item bank, then you would need to use the clear filters. If you start from the manual test, you essentially set up your filters in the setting up of the test when you chose your subject, your grade, and your standards template, if you remember.
So that is another approach that they can get around that as well, if it's becoming too cumbersome. Start them in manual test mode, create a manual test.
It's just training people to remember to do that.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah,
It'd be great if it's automatic, but for now, you know,
I think now at least we've got the clear off filters rather than having to trash can
Yes.
everything, right?
This, I think, it will be a time saver as far as your click path.
I think it's helpful to have it at the top, because the little tiny clear filters is at the bottom left corner, at the very bottom of the screen, and you have to know where it was to go.
Definitely.
And that was actually on the all filters.
It was only on the all filters screen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It wasn't on
right.
the front.
It wasn't on the front screen.
Right, correct.
You would click it. Yes, story of my life when I use the training website for my webinars. I'm like, pause just a second while I unclick.
Yep.
Yeah.
So those are two. The next is the text or keyword feature. You now have the option right next to the little, I call it the magnifying glass, there's a drop down now where you can search all words or any words. It defaults to all words, so whatever, obviously the more words you type in, the less results you're gonna get. But any words would search by all of the words. So I know some people, we've had when you're searching for an item or a passage and you remember it's about topic ABC, you can put that in there and.
Civil War.
Or a turtle moves slowly,
Or a snail.
or a snail moves slowly. That's the one that we had a horrible time trying to find.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that passage.
Yes, I do recall that. Any questions about all or any words?
Now that searches the reading passage as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
same item or has.
Yeah, it's whatever you happen to be working on at that time. It also appears in the advanced search features, so just the difference between these two screenshots. One is when you're looking at the item banks. The second one is when you've already checked all filters and you open it up to look at maybe an item type or something else, and you see it there as well. Okay. This, I think, was a North Carolina request. That's what I thought. So when we are searching for passages, and we say find and group all items by passages, if you recall where you can go look at production down in 21, you see the first passage has 52 items, and you have to either click the little arrow, the caret, or you have to keep scrolling until you get to the next passage. There is now a hide linked items button, and what's great about this is that now you'll see first passage, second passage, third passage. You still have the little caret where if you wanted to open up the items for specific passage, you can. But at least now that scrolling through 50 or 60 passages becomes a little bit quicker. The other feature right here, in case, and in my mind, I'm projecting how you're going to troubleshoot some things. They check the hide items and then someone says, oh, I can't find any of the items, they're not showing. This automatically alerts the user that you have the passages sorted by the number of linked items and that they're hidden, and it'll give them information that they can choose, okay? And then they can unlink by the same person, hide, linked, unlinked, okay?
So this should be popular for your ELA teachers who want to peruse the passages before they start selecting their items, right?
Oh, yes.
Yep.
I think you brought this up, James, for Davidson County. Unless I thought this was brought up by Alamance. Did you make this suggestion when we were in the meetups last time?
Possibly, because
I thought it
that's,
was someone in your group that brought this up, so. But anyway, it's North Carolina
Requested.
requested and granted.
Yep.
Well, the other big thing about that is teachers that use Schoolnet a lot, they know when they see the passage if they've used it. And so they sit there and say, I don't want to have to go through all the questions.
yeah.
We were up on that right away.
Yeah, so they'll love this.
Again, all these things that we're going through are all in that search of the item banks. The next feature, again, focuses on the filters. So on the front screen, without needing to go to advanced filters, you're now going to see a box where you can type in the publisher. You're going to see DOK, Bloom's taxonomy, and the question language. We already explained, we kind of negated the question language by separating them out for you. The publishers are also obviously by the banks. We sorted those with 21.0. But now, if you're looking in the Certica Bank and you're looking at the DOK levels, this is a drop down for the DOK, and you can just choose 1, 2, 3, and it automatically filters out the items.
Yeah, and just footnote, Certica is the only item bank where we have that DOK and Blooms.
Yep.
I have a question as we're going through these updates. Is there, and thinking about how we get this information to our users, does Pearson have a plan to create some kind of, other than the webinar that's really long, like a promo video almost of like, here are the highlights of what has changed?
Well, the other thing too is when we update, there's going to be a tutorial flash page that's going to go over all of the updates, like we've always done.
Yeah,
So that's one way. We have the release notes, which gives you a
Yeah.
highlight, and those are down. I don't know, I had forgot to check whether they've been updated on the training site or not. I'll do that during break. That's another option. The other thing is typically Pearson will also do a YouTube video that will highlight each
Okay.
of the updates. And we can send you that link once that's complete.
yeah, that would be helpful because I think it's more of like,
And I don't think
We need
it's
a
out of
hook
the realm
to
of
get 'em to
reason,
go
if
in
you
there.
want us to put together a document that's kind of more North Carolina specific, I think we could make this in a 6-page or less document, to be honest with you. This isn't a huge release.
uh-huh,
It's truly refinements on 21 as far as the searching mechanisms and changes, but
Almost
that's
all of it
helpful,
revolves around this.
and we can do that with North Carolina specific screenshots. I mean, it would be very much like what you're seeing
See
here.
uh-huh. Like as a QRC.
Yeah, but more like a Word format or PDF
Oh, okay.
format, and just let you have that to
I
send
mean,
out.
we can
Okay.
take the release notes and basically cut out the parts that don't apply,
And put some North
change some
Carolina
of the-
specific. Yeah.
the images for you, if that's helpful.
I think it would be, and I'm trying to think, like, what would be most helpful and user-friendly for the teacher?
How about Pam, let me run this past you. We could also put that together, put it on the production landing page
Uh-huh.
as far as, then that way it can get populated to all users. Are you agreeable to that? So, and we can do that probably within the next couple weeks,
Okay.
so that they can start getting and say, look, preview 21.1, here's what's coming January 10th.
Perfect.
Okay, this is one of my favorite features. I'm just gonna say this. Everybody's gonna hear it this week, because now, when you go to the standards picker, there's a new column. You see it right there in red to the right, and it tells you exactly the number
Oh,
of
that's
items aligned to the standard. Now, to be specific, this aggregates up. It's probably not a good screenshot of this, because this is just a sample, but if I go to the training site, when I come out of this PowerPoint, I can show you that your upper tiers of your standards. So for instance, your domains in math, if you go to geometry, it's going to aggregate the count up to the geometry domain. And then when you break it down to your clusters and your sub-skills, you're going to see the actual breakdown for the number of items. Once you add a standard, you also get the count over here. You see where it says filter icon, you're going to see going back to, I set my subject, my grade, I choose my standards template, I chose 3 standards. Those are all the filters you've already applied, maybe to your test or to your search. It's going to let you know how many filters you've already applied. So why is this important? Because the slide that had all my item counts for the classroom items, if I've applied filters, they're not going to jive, they're not going to match, and someone's going to come to you and say, well, there's no items under such and such a standard. You know, there's already filters applied, so it's going to limit the number of items that end up appearing. So you want to make people aware of that. One of the uses of this, and I think maybe Pam and Joan can chime in on this, is we've had a lot of conversation in the last couple of weeks or more over express tests, and there was a little bug that was going around. We were having problems with some of our CTE people using it, etc. In lieu of using the express test, you could create a manual test, see exactly how many items here, click the plus sign for an entire standard. Now I know that I'm going to get 14 items, add all, and they go right to my test. You could still view them, which is a feature that you don't get on the express test, which is kind of a plus if you want before you add them. But it works in the same manner with less
Randomness.
Right, well, there's more control, like there's more intentionality by doing it that way,
Yes.
by all the teachers.
And the way the CTE in particular, the way the CTE standards are organized by course,
Right.
it'd be very easy on the screen for them to see exactly, you know, which questions for which objective or which, you know, unit within their course they see. So I highly encourage this, you know, viewpoint versus creating express tests.
Any questions about the item counts showing up in the standards?
Yeah, and I think we could just footnote, I think we're all unanimous as far as the state team goes. We don't like express tests.
Yeah.
Please, and I would discourage people from using express tests.
And
Sorry.
on that note,
Yes.
good. You know where I'm going.
There you go.
If we had the option to turn off express tests, to disable it, would there be an uproar?
There would.
There
When you
would,
use
but they
your
would
own-
adjust.
When you use your own bank that
Yeah.
you've created, you want, the express test is perfect.
That's a really good angle. I
I
hadn't
hadn't
Yeah.
thought about that.
And that's what I need, because
Yeah.
we're having so many issues, because people do not realize that express test will pull 80 questions aligned to my standard, right? So
Yep.
CTE creates their own items, but we also have districts that, and there's some state level items for CTE items that are not from NCDPI. So they're like, where's this question coming from? And I'm like, well, if you use express text and you just pull, it's gonna pull whatever questions are aligned to that. And, you know, you may not be getting just the DPI items that you're expecting to get. That's one issue with video. So there has been conversation, express tests, I don't know, a year ago, I can't remember if it was 20 or 19, was supposed to get a big refresh and makeover. And then it didn't happen. So with item banks now, express test kind of has missed a little bit of updating. So I'm excited to see, hopefully it will get updated and fixed at some point, but I wanted to throw it out there. If we could get rid of it, would that be a good idea? But I'm hearing, I hadn't thought about that, Drew, that you're right. If you've got your own item bank,
Yeah,
express
I'm a
test
third
is good.
grade English teacher. I've got all my little items in my own bank.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you
But
made some edits to items, like you create a test and then you you've changed multiple choice into constructed response or especially in math, you save that in your own bank, so you don't have to redo it every time.
Yeah, but see, Express test pulls from everywhere.
Unless you go into advanced options and change your banks.
Yeah.
So are people doing that? Because the
I
ones
have some high school, just a couple high schools that have
Okay.
started playing with that.
Okay.
And they've,
And
Yes.
online folks, please chime in too as well about Express Test and your personal viewpoint
that's.
of it.
So having the option to keep Express Test for personal item bank, but then being able to turn it off for the other item.
It's on or off, it's not, we can't
It's a
touch
bigger
it.
switch than.
Yeah, it's a statewide switch, I can't.
Once they pick their own
Way we're
bank though,
configured.
Oh, it wouldn't be that.
And-
No.
and they go into their own standards, it should only show what they want anyway. So it's probably not that big of a deal. It's real quick for them when they want to do, oh, I just did a pre-test, I need to do another
Absolutely,
pre-test.
absolutely, the premise of Express Test is fabulous, like who would, as a teacher, Express, yes, I don't have time for this,
I want a 5-question quiz right there.
That's what we use
Exactly.
it for, yeah.
But-
Not for-
but in thinking about actually rigorous assessment creation, randomly pulling items isn't always your best thing.
Well, while we're on this topic, one of the things that we have been questioning, Catherine and I, and internal to Pearson, is revamping Express Test. And one of the things that they're talking about doing is really enhancing, there is an advanced filtering option in Express Test, but it's not very visible. And what they're planning on doing is trying to make that more enhanced, so that you've got filtering capabilities before you actually create that test. Not just standards, but it's similar to what you're seeing here, but
In the
it'll have,
advanced
right.
filters.
So you would select the banks that you want to pull from on an express test, for example. So if I'm a teacher and I want an express test and I want to use my own personal bank to pull from, it'll be a lot more obvious to say, I want to use this bank.
Or state released items.
Or state released items, or whatever the
That'd be
case
cool.
may be, so that you get more of that true filtering and specificity associated with where the content's coming from. So that's one thing that's been suggested as far as the enhancements for Express Test, which I think gets around a lot of what the complaints are about Express Test. The only other thing that's the downfall is it's going to automatically populate from there randomly. And I know that some people, the debate's out, you really should be reviewing everything before you're making selections, but that's a personal.
And the user will need to make a lot more front-end selections. So
It's not as quick. It's
Not
not
as
as expressed, right?
but it will solve a lot of the issues that you're referring to.
So more to come on that, but we thought we'd try to solicit some input from you on that front as well. So, thank you.
Okay, so before I move on to the next slide, that's pretty much all for the item banks and the filtering. We can always go back to it in the training site, and I can show you live afterwards if you'd like, or you can log in there.
Are you getting positive feedback about the way we've done item banks and the searching capabilities? Is it going
Yes.
over well? Okay.
So then, sorry, go ahead.
It hasn't gone over well because teachers are having,
Resistant to
but
change.
the people that have changed are, yes, I love this, but initially they're like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. Express Test, yes, 5 questions, go.
Change is difficult,
Thank you.
but inevitable.
Yeah, that's true.
So the next piece of the upgrade is going to focus on reporting. Any of your districts use analysis spreadsheets for reporting? Okay. This is equally my favorite to the item counts on this upgrade is if you've ever made an analysis spreadsheet yourself and you did not pre-think about your columns, you're stuck in the mud.
Let's start over.
Start over or remove or reorder. So I would always tell the districts that I work with, I'm going to give you a piece of paper. I want you to list all the things you want in your report, and I want you to order them in priority, give them numbers on the paper, and then we're going to build it in the system. No need for that with 21.1. Yay! Kind of like reordering your questions in a test. You can now click on them and just move the column. Yay!
Drag and drop.
I can't tell you how many times I've started over with some of these. Because someone said, oh, I forgot, can you add gender? Where do you want it? Second column. So it's easy. I've tried it in the training site and DCT. It works very well. So this is great. The next thing to the analysis spreadsheet, which Pam and Joan and I will be working on this week, is that when you pull standardized scores in, similar to what you see in the student's profile for an EOC or EOG, for instance, there's a color attached to their level. That will now be assigned within the analysis spreadsheet. So it's kind of like a glorified conditional formatting in an Excel spreadsheet where you can automatically see, how many greens we have or how many blues we have.
Do we have the right to set where the cuts are?
No, that'll be done at state level.
That's state level. Because this is only applicable to your standardized tests.
Okay, because we're still having when we're doing our own assessments, the cut score for third grade reading is so high. And then by the time you get to eighth grade reading, it's a lot lower. And we want to be able to have the colors that match grade level and state standards. And they don't now.
Which particular?
Like EOGs, EOGs, but when we're doing a model test, we want to have the color schemes of where the cut scores are to match the grade levels.
So let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. You are giving a school level assessment within Schoolnet, and you want to set the cut scores similar to what they are on the standardized test. Are you utilizing the customized score groups?
Not always,
Okay,
because a lot of our teachers don't feel comfortable with that yet.
okay,
And that's maybe just a training thing we need to do. But, there are the standard ones that are already in there.
the default
The
score
defaults,
groups
yeah.
are for the entire system, correct?
But I can't go in and just change that by grading. It's got to be done each time you do an assessment. And that becomes,
Cumbersome.
it's not express.
No, it is not. It is, I agree with you with that.
Unless you're in the habit of doing it on a test-by-test
Right.
basis, and know to open that section up and change it, right?
Because for quizzes, they don't care, but when you do a unit test or something,
Right.
It does.
But just to make sure everyone's clear on this, this color coding is not going to apply to your benchmark test.
Right, this is your state.
Just
this is the state
standardized, just making sure.
And this will this be linked based on each grade level being independent? Or is the color scheme standard for everybody?
It's standardized by test type.
So if it's an ELA, EOG test, will the colors align with third grade, which has a much narrower range of passing compared to seventh grade, which has a
Well, we import the EOCs and EOGs, they're already leveled, right?
Right, so is this based on
And then,
level or
so
scale
we'll have
score?
It'll be less, I think it's based on level, isn't
It looks like it's based on level.
Level.
So it's whatever comes into that file.
Okay, because I'm seeing a 10.8 on there being green.
Oh, no, this is not,
Oh, okay.
this is just a screenshot of it. It's not specific to North Carolina.
So just on the other end of that now that we don't have a level 1 and 2, are they all going to be orange or red, or are they actually going to break it down by scale scores? Because I'll be honest,
It's
we're
not
missing.
by scale scores.
It'll probably just be one color because it's not proficient now.
So really, it's
That
not,
score.
so
that
really,
level.
that doesn't help us as we dig into the needs of our students
And
more.
it's just like what you're gonna see in the student profile now, right? As far as the color coding goes.
Well, starting this year. I mean, we don't have a state, the state made that decision without consulting us, but it is a different, when the kid's really close and you just tell them, they're not proficient.
Right.
And we have some problems with that. But it also doesn't help us inform learning when you have this huge range up to 65% is not proficient in third grade. Well, how close are they or far are they?
Just see if it comes up in the training site as anything.
And that's a state decision, not a Schoolnet, but that's why we're wondering if we can adjust that and we get the gradient based on scale score, would be really helpful.
So this is what it's going to hold.
Now.
So that won't matter if they are a scale score of, I guess it would be 300, soon to be 400 scale.
Yeah, so you've got a pretty good range there.
That's a huge range.
Yes.
So it's not as informative as it could be.
But this is what we get imported as far as data for those tests, so.
Yeah, it only pulls off of these levels.
So having all those colors really doesn't matter because we're only going to get 4 colors.
If that's what the test has, you're gonna.
That's all the state has. It has not proficient,
Yep.
3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, and that's what you're gonna get.
Whereas
4
if-
colors.
If there's any way they can pull by scale score by grade level, then you could use that range of colors, and there's 7 or 8 on there, and really show a nice
But it's not,
distribution.
But the state is really building off the score grid, right?
yes.
Because that's how we get that data.
Yes.
So I understand where you're coming from. I don't know a way around it.
Not at this time.
Not the way we get the
We
data.
export it and do it, so that's what we have to do.
The only thing that this really would give you would be a jumping off point,
Does that start this semester?
where you
Like, does
could,
it start with,
you know,
yes?
put all your reds together, your greens
First
together,
semester.
and then order the scale scores from there. I've
Well, we
seen,
do that from the state release data. I mean,
Oh, right.
we scan.
Yeah. I've seen
I was
this.
just hoping something else would come out.
No.
It'll still be on 1, 2, 3, 4.
And on the analysis spreadsheet,
Figure out summer camp.
you know, you can set all that up, Drew, because you do have a scale score.
Just for grade.
Well, it's
And
the
then
same as
just-
doing
and
it
then-
Excel though.
Right,
It's
and then
about
just
the same amount of work.
override the color,
Yeah.
right? Do your conditional format.
The only thing I like to do rather than set it up, because I run a lot of the New Jersey scores, is that I find it easier to set up the analysis spreadsheet and then export it.
Yes.
Because it's a beast with, you know, thousands and thousands of student pieces of data. And if they want, you know, this benchmark aligned to the last 3 years,
Absolutely.
then it works really well for me in
Yes.
Schoolnet to line up all my columns. I want to put the girls against the boys kind of scenario, I want to filter them down that way, or whatever your supplements are.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. We do a lot of that and it really helps.
Yeah, and then I just export it from there and.
No,
then
it's
start
only
my
helping
conditional format
grade
and
level
get that,
proficiency.
so.
Right, it's not helping career
CCR.
college.
Thank you. That's,
Wait,
we do use it for that. And I love the comparative,
Well, but that.
year-to-year comparative. That's been really helpful.
Good.
Good. Would have been 4s, now they're 3s.
Any other
No,
questions
they
about
were
your?
on the other end.
Oh, on the other
So
side.
you were a
So,
2 before, now
in
you're
You're
a
above
3.
rated.
Yeah.
In
Now you
21.0, the matching item was changed, if you recall. So you got this warning that said about, prior to that, that matching was.
Your wow, wish and wonder.
Yes, so on the slide deck, I have a wow, wish, and wonder, and our friends yesterday went ahead and started it. This is just part of, you know, continuous improvement. We want to know, and this is from your perspective, as a school net admin at, you know, your school or district. Oh, we want to know what features of Schoolnet do you love, and this could also be content. We had someone ask yesterday, they're hearing that the teachers really like the released items and the classroom bank of items from NCDPI. So feel free to put that up there. What do you wish Schoolnet could do? And then if you have any questions or wonderings about, you know, something that maybe you know, have heard or think that maybe Schoolnet could do, notice you can vote. So if you want to take a second to look at what was added yesterday, and you can upvote things as well as comment on them. This is just very helpful information for us to collect as we just continuously look at assessments and platforms and, what are the features that our users are loving and having every day, and what are the things they want to wish for. Because as you can see from the release notes in 21.1, several North Carolina requests became a part of Schoolnet, and that continues to be the case. Schoolnet continues to be, appears to continue to be a good partner for North Carolina in listening to us. So I'm going to be quiet. And I'm going to put the link to the Padlet in the chat for our folks online.
So I'm going to ask a couple questions if you don't mind. I'd love to hear some feedback from you all, but what are we going into? Are we on our 6th year? Is that right? 6th year of Schoolnet, right? Gosh, time flies. Can you give me any context of how this has been impactful for instruction for your districts, or feedback from your teachers on how this has helped them with instruction? Do you have any anecdotal, personal kind of feedback as far as how Schoolnet has been if it's a valuable tool to you and your districts? And if so, how?
I'll offer one that sounds simplistic, but it's really important. It's created better conversations on PLC groups. It's really encouraged more formative assessments through the proctor dashboard. Once we had a chance to, because a lot of teachers just don't know anything about that, because in many instances they were just doing paper pencil, or they weren't assigning to their class or that kind of thing. But when they see what they can do on the spot, to change their and modify their instruction as opposed to just waiting for one assessment at the end of the year or the end of the quarter. That makes a big impact. And it's been hard for teachers to understand the impact of the data when they had no data, when they didn't use it very much.
Right.
Now, not to go back to that conversation, but when you've got more data, the urgency is more there to use the tool.
So if I can also make an interpretation based on that, this also gets your teachers more data driven,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Because that's a different mindset. It takes a while for people to
Yes.
adapt. And that's not just education, that happens across all industries, all companies, what have you, right? And getting acclimated to how to use data and what data is valuable and what data is not is an art, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is you're seeing the maturity of that adoption of some data-driven decisions
Yes.
rather than emotional.
yep.
Right,
And
or
for,
experience or whatever, yeah.
for administrators, they're used to seeing things in Excel spreadsheets and tables and whatnot. But for classroom teachers, these colorful graphing things that are now a part of Schoolnet that maybe weren't a few years ago, catch their eye and they see it fast, you know. And now they quickly say, oh, I want to see the scores on the assessment widget on the home screen. You know, of course, you have to explain to them sometimes it takes overnight, but they are looking for that because they want to know immediately how the kids are doing. So it's, yeah, very good.
I just kind of paraphrased that, James, and added it to her.
Oh, okay. Paraphrase.
Any other input on that note?
Well, Julie just mentioned that when you look at teachers who consistently have good test scores and, you know, you try to ask them what they've used, you know, it is consistent that they are trying to use Schoolnet and incorporate
We are
that.
seeing that parallel in
Yes.
our district.
Uh-huh. So,
As Ramona says when she trains them, we don't have anything that best parallels what they're gonna see on the integrated test and what's in Schoolnet.
right. We don't.
Yeah.
And if
So
they'll
at
believe
least you
that
can start
inside,
seeing the correlations between doing a little bit of predictive analysis on where a kid can end up, right?
Right.
And then being able to be proactive about changing that course, right? If it's not a good one, right? So that's interesting data to me. How did you go about analyzing that? The good test scores and the correlation to.
it's not so data driven like what you were talking about, but we, you know, we just kind of
Just
know who's got.
anecdotal.
Yes. So we don't have it like in a survey or anything like that, but.
But as we've done Schoolnet trainings and as we talk to teachers who have really good test scores, you know, it always comes out when you're trying to glean from them, what are you doing?
Right.
It comes out that they use Schoolnet.
And they're using it on a regular
Yes.
basis.
Right.
In
Not
a
just
formative,
at the bottom.
in a formative
That's right.
perspective.
That's right. And when they're in our trainings, they're speaking up and saying, yeah, she's exactly right. There's nothing better and I use it and that's one reason why my test scores are good, because I use them.
Good feedback.
I think one thing that, when I've done trainings in the last few months, that when we're looking at MTSS and trying to meet students where they are, the data is right there. And you can see who has mastered standards so easily. And I think sharing that information with teachers, you know, our district, we have some, you know, power users and then we have some that don't. And when you get it up there and you can see who has mastered and then who hasn't, just being able to create those groups and things like that, and those, the data at the end, I mean, that is just such an eye-opener for teachers. And so I think that's.
So it's helping inspire change as well, because they're seeing
Well,
in a graphical format or in a performance type of format where things are, right?
And it's quick.
It's quick and they can respond so much easier to meet the needs of the learners.
So Rachel would like to join us. So Rachel, I'm going to unmute you.
Hello, you guys. I actually had a teacher that scored 100% for her class on the EOGs last year, and when we talked with her, she did pre and post test with Schoolnet using those rigorous based questions with all the A's, you know, 1s, 2s, and 3s. And I truly believe that that's why she was able to do as well as she did, because her children were used to answering those rigorous question types all year long. It's not just a sit and get type thing for her. And I really think that was an important feature for us for using Schoolnet. And I hope that's going to help me get more of my teachers to use it on a regular basis in their classrooms.
Where's Rachel from?
Rachel, what district are you from?
I'm from Stokes County.
Stokes County. Good story.
What, I'm curious, what subject was that teacher?
She was a mathematics teacher.
Okay.
Elementary or middle?
Fourth grade this year and fifth grade year before, and both years she had 100%.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a testimony, I think.
Yeah, that's a huge testimony. Oh, thank you, Rachel, for sharing. That was very impactful.
That'd be a great wow. You know, enter a wow.
Well, yeah, Rachel, can we have an offline conversation? I'd love to feature that teacher in our little monthly newsletter.
She's a great teacher. I really like how she, really works independently with her students, and she uses a guided math model also with those questioning types. And we're working with her and one of our new teachers this year. They're doing a lot of co-authoring for formative assessment pieces, and they're trying to do common assessments across their grade levels. So I'm hoping for really good results.
That's wonderful.
Yes, because we take that wonderful fountain of knowledge and spread it, right?
Yeah. Share it everywhere.
Exactly. All right. Well, I'll reach out to you, Rachel, but thank you. Anybody else online want to share?
There's something, if you don't have anybody there, that I want to share about getting
Absolutely.
administrators more involved. Quite by accident, I discovered a lot of the discipline reporting that's in the reporting features and the graphs that's pulled over from Power School. And in talking to some principals about that, they just went nuts. Right? They had no idea it was there, and the implications for using that information to help with NCSS and problem-solving teams, school improvement, NC Star. They were just on fire about, wow, I had no idea, and they loved the bar graphs as much as the tables, even the administrators, just to see.
And then the correlations that are associated.
Yeah, because they can take that back to a school improvement team and have conversations around, the discipline data where they don't have to go pull some OCR report or something like that to get all that information. It's right there. They can go back multiple years or just months. I know that one of our schools is having, well, many, but one in particular is having a huge vaping issue, that they looked at how many instances were, possession or use. And I put this in there somewhere, but it kind of reminds me of we don't have ECATs, but we have a whole lot of ECATs already in Schoolnet. We just didn't really know that we had it all in there. And every day I'm like finding something else that helps us, not just in Schoolnet and not just testing, but all aspects of what we have to do in school now to make change happen.
So this was a good lure, if you will, as far as pulling more of your admin folks on board as to what was coming out of Schoolnet for you.
Right, because, for them, if it's something that you say, oh, you can do this, and they can go click on it, and they start looking at it, they're kind of like kids, you just give them something to lure them in, and then they start playing and digging and clicking.
And then they start playing, right, once you get them in there.
Yep.
How about the rest of you, as far as your principals or administration? Are they involved? Are they interested in this, or is that still a gap?
I think it's a gap in my system.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably a time issue, and we have just changed our testing person who doesn't have the knowledge that our previous testing person had, I think, yet. I mean, I'm sure he's learning, but it's, it didn't come all in one day. So I do think it's, we've had a lot of administration change, and so I just don't think it's something that they all have the same level of expertise or time. It's always going to be a time factor to learn it and get it started.
It is.
And I think the time has to do with all the other platforms, right, that we're using. So now,
Right.
like, our district's brought in a match math.
Well, I'd love to, maybe we can regroup on this on the next meetup, but if you could put some thought into how could we pull more administrative interest out of Schoolnet and get creative? Is there
Okay.
ways that we can create reportings for your respective districts or at the state level to publish relative to your districts? And if there is, dream the dream and tell me what kind of data would be needed in that type of reporting that could make an eye opener. And remember, with publishing reports, all they gotta do is go to their report dashboard on their landing page and click on that report. And it will auto-populate, auto-update for the most current data. But if there's correlations like James was just talking about, you know, discipline versus, or, you know, attendance, or is there other data elements that we're capturing that we can pivot off to capture that audience's attention? I'd be willing to put resource up to help facilitate that.
I know our principals were excited about checking it.
Right.
Really, especially when you do the annual, they want to know where are we right now compared to where we were last year? Are we on track? Are we tracking student growth? And we already have the tools in place for that. So if we can get the data in there without stepping on toes, that's what my principals were most excited about. Because they can see, they do their own analysis, but it's not as robust as what we can do in school.
So share with me too, and this is kind of help for Pam, the check-in data angle of this and principals being excited. So what actions are the principals taking when they get this kind of data?
We haven't had it yet. This is what they want.
This is what they want.
They're
What would
doing
you
it.
anticipate the actions to be as a result of that?
Well, they're looking at where to put their energies. Are we, you know, the fact that it allows us to break down and look at, we can pull in last year's EOG, how are level 3 students doing, how are 2. We can also bring demographic data in. Are we doing our subgroups growing? And where compared to last year, are we doing better with our subgroups? That's what they're looking at digging in on. And then what do we do with the data for those who aren't where we expect them to be? So really informing instruction, informing our tier 2 interventions.
So principals then will take, okay, I need resources allocated to this, this, and this based on the data that I am seeing now in order to get my improvements before the end of the year.
And to link it with school improvement, and you know, we're all using it. I don't know how many of you are using NC Star, but this data feeds right into our NC Star discussions with school leadership and school improvement teams, and it informs our decision making, which is what we want. We want informed decisions, and it's just another tool for helping us do that. But it's more robust than we have available now because we're really the stagnant reports and NC check-ins. They're good. I'm not arguing with that. But they could be better if they allow us to compare data more. Would you find the same thing?
Oh, yes. So these posters, you'll see up here on the wall, the chart paper, it's actually from our last check-in session, review session that we did after our check-ins one. And so that data had to be hand compiled by the assessment department, which could have easily, like looking at the teachers had to
You could have
look
done
at the
standards analysis and gotten all
in
of
Schoolnet instead of having to pull the raw data and do it through WinScan and doing it by hand, putting it in a spreadsheet, and then having a curriculum facilitator or curriculum specialist then put it into the PD format that we were using. So it just makes things a lot
I'm
more.
so sorry because you spearheaded a lot of this initiative too. I'm really sorry to hear that for you.
But that's just one of the reports that we don't necessarily get in the static WinScan. WinScan's what is used in state testing. You can see that for your classroom, and you get a sense of it at the school level I get by question, but then you still don't get it really by the standard itself and being able to.
You don't get the aggregate on the standard, right?
Yep.
And standard gaps is what we have talked about is
Well, that's
what standards haven't we covered with check-ins?
Right,
Or haven't we covered since the fall that we can go in and push in now?
Yep.
We have it in Schoolnet, we can say, okay, these are the 5 standards I need to reassess. And I can put together as a team,
Yep.
a brief assessment, maybe a 15, 20 question assessment that retests those, because we were so weak on it, we need to double check and see that we reinforce that with our students. That's what my principals and my instructional facilitators are really excited about.
Yeah.
So we're gonna make it happen.
So
Because they only told you you couldn't do it.
right.
I know we're coming up on lunchtime, but just to revisit that notion of, how can we get some jazz with your administrators going? And is there anything that we can do from a state level to help facilitate that? I am happy to come to your districts if you want to talk one-on-one on how to create that. So feel free to reach out. I'm happy to come there, talk with you all, and see what we can do. So. And cards and letters are always welcome too, through the Google forum too, if you got some ideas and people can piggyback off of them as well.
Yeah, I'll probably, after this week, I'll make a post on this weekly thread so that we can continue discussion about the administrators.
So I think the success stories might be a hook too, but I'm thinking it's more of like, you have to be able to get in front of the administrators, right? So that's another part of the time, not just time with the platform,
Yeah, if
but
you get,
time with the
you get 5
principals.
minutes at principal meeting.
Yeah, right.
But, you guys are the heroes here about Schoolnet, and I greatly appreciate everything you have done over all of the years here in North Carolina, because you are a spotlight for us as far as how you've applied Schoolnet and how you're using it. So kudos to you for your advocacy and supporting your districts. Appreciate it.
So when we get back, we'll talk about anything that's been added to the hot topics document, anything else you guys want to share. We had a couple of discussion topics that you guys submitted in the register too, so we'll pop those up for discussion. We're gonna come back into this room at 1:15. So, all right, and for our folks online, we'll come back at 1:15. So thank you. If anyone online is not gonna be able to join us in the afternoon, if you'll make sure to give us feedback on the, I think it's the next to last slide. The very last slide, slide 36, there's a feedback survey. If you would make sure to give us feedback on what went well this morning and what you would like to improve. Thank you.